Hey folks, this is Clayton Collins, CEO at HW Media, your host for the Housing News Podcast. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Nick Bailey, the CEO and president of RE/MAX. This is a really phenomenal conversation that ties in a lot of the focus areas that we have right now at HW Media. We talk about inventory and these record low March and April numbers that we are seeing right now. We talk about Nick's career, developing a path inside of RE/MAX, but also getting some exposure to the real estate tech ecosystem, which leads us into talking about M&A, one of my favorite topics, and the importance of moving quickly on integrations and decisions shortly after an acquisition, both on the tech side as well as in the real estate brokerage ecosystem. And I'd be amiss to remind you that this episode is timed shortly after the launch of the Real Trends broker rankings, where RE/MAX is ranked as the number 3 brand. Last year, the RE/MAX brand in totality did 255,000 sides with sales volume exceeding 111 billion. And if you haven't checked out this year's Real Trends rankings on realtrends.com yet, you're really going to be impressed with the digital presentation that we have, which gives a glimpse into brokerages, both national and brand and franchise level, and team data, which is coming soon. The new digital presentation with year-over-year performance and a glimpse into who's gaining market share and who's giving up market share. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Nick Bailey. I certainly did, and I'm excited, really excited to see him on stage at the Gathering of Eagles this summer in June in Austin, Texas. Hope to see you there too. All right, Nick, good to see you on camera. How's everything going in your world?
It's great. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad we got to catch up a little bit before turning the camera on. It sounds like you had another interesting interview today, but this podcast, even though we're recording video, your other interview was for Fox Business. How was that conversation?
You know, it's good. It's such a privilege to represent the RE/MAX network to the world, I guess, on that platform and talk about the industry. And as you know, there's no shortage of headlines, whether it be interest rates or, today was part of that, or home prices, where they're going. And then, of course, they like to give you with a 1-2 punch and hit me with affordability. So, it's an interesting conversation, but it's things that buyers and sellers want to know. And so we're happy to be the voice and answer that for the industry.
It is. It's interesting to think about the role of the president and the leader of a large real estate brokerage. And you have a team that's distributed coast to coast, and you have leaders coast to coast. But it seems like a big part of your job is public facing and communicating with the industry, the media, and consumers. Like, how do you balance like that pretty important responsibility with also the requirements of running strategy and finance and people and all the things that come with running a large organization?
Yeah, it's balancing priorities for sure. But, I think when you look at this industry, I just firmly believe it's such a relationship driven type of business, whether it be the relationship that buyers and sellers have with their agents, the agents have with the brokers, agents and brokers have with us. And so I think it's important that we're out there and talking about what's happening, because we do have an advantage. Not only do we span the globe, 140,000 plus agents in 110 countries, but when we consider just the US, it's a big footprint. And so we have the luxury of being able to hear from every state and almost every corner of every market on what's happening, what's not happening, what's just a headline and what's truth. And we can kind of pile all that together, and the wonderful team that helps support me in doing that, they make it pretty easy for me to just kind of be the puppet for the organization on these type of media interviews. But I do think it's an important part of what we do.
Does the external comms strategy help you with internal communications as well? Like, do you get feedback loops from your agents and your agent, not just in the US, but across the world, that hear you or see you on TV or on podcast, and that helps them in their business?
They do. And it's really less about me. It's, I'm the voice of it and I understand that, but it's really more about the brand, because having agents that outsell 2 to 1, on the globe, we're very proud of the fact that nobody sells more real estate than RE/MAX. And so when you have that type of production coming from that level of professionals, we are all ears, and they definitely give us feedback on what they're seeing and hearing. But it's also, they're very proud of the fact when they see their brand highlighted on media interviews as being the experts in the market, because we believe that Many of our agents, because of their professionalism and experience, are the experts in their local market, and we just get to broadcast that on their behalf.
So we just dropped the Real Trends rankings a few weeks ago, and when this podcast drops, and I'm not sitting in front of the productivity numbers right now, but I am looking at like the national numbers for 2022, which we just released. So Remax, which includes the 63 brokerages that you're reporting on, are we're third in the country with 255 sides for franchises and a sales volume of over 111 billion. But I love those numbers, but I want to dig into that metric you just mentioned of the 2-to-1 on sales volume. So that's not a metric that I know inside and out. So give us a glimpse into what you're talking about when you reference that 2-to-1.
Yeah, really referring to transactions, that the average Remax agent outsells 2-to-1 of the next largest brokerage competitor. And so that means that they're selling twice as much real estate as their next closest competitor on average. And something that's interesting, we absolutely love the list that you put out, by the way, and we're very proud of all the offices and agents that work so hard and get that recognition, because recognition in this business is important. And as we do so, we get questioned all the time because there are a lot of different business models out there. There are companies that are brokerages in one market. There are brokerages in a state. We now have national brokerages where we're actually a brand. All of our offices are independently owned and operated. And so the way we kind of count these numbers can be, is it by brokerage? Is it by brand? And so that actually plays into the numbers too. But we take it for all agents affiliated with, say, one company or one brand when we talk about that 2-to-1.
Yeah, the complexity of the structure of brokerages and franchises across the country is makes rankings a very challenging business and methodology to run. I know our team, led by Mark Adams and Tracy Velt, and with the guidance of Steve Murray, puts a lot of effort into making sure we're comparing apples to apples and actually taking into account the franchise and brand structures. So give us a little, so I want to stay on that productivity metric a little bit. So has Remax and have you put an effort to attract more productive agents, or have you enabled average agents to become more productive? Like how has this like metric come to be?
As we're celebrating 50 years in 2023 that Remax has been around, it really started with our foundation. And of course, most people know 50 years ago, Dave and Gail Linegar, our co-founders, revolutionized the economic model for agents. And, at the time, a 50-50 split was the average. And to come out and say, hey, how about you take home all of your commissions and help share in the overhead of running the company? Put your name on the yard sign because it's your business. And it really revolutionized how real estate is conducted at the agent level today. But as a result, that has come through in everything that we do. We kind of have a litmus test here at Remax that all the employees know, which is we wake up every day and say, what are we doing as a brand and brand leaders to make sure that our agents can get another buyer or seller, and how can our offices grow their company? And those are the two filters that we run everything through. And so over that 50 years, as we think about, we've attracted top producers, and the reality is top producers like to hang out with other top producers, so they attract like kind. And yet if you come in and maybe you're not the top producer in your market, then it's about tools, education, surrounding yourself by the right people. And that's what helps you actually increase your business. And so it's yes, education, it's the tools and services that we put together to provide. But I think more importantly, it's the culture. And it's the culture that started 50 years ago that continues to live on today, that we are really focused on agents being top producing professionals in their local market. Most trusted agents, most productive. The average Remax agent has over 15 years of experience, where the industry is only an average of 7. And so those things, I believe, are just driven by the culture that we've created.
We have a Slack channel at HW that publishes all the new registered users for our HW events, like the Gathering of Eagles coming up in June and HousingWire Annual coming up in October. I was just scrolling through the Gathering of Eagles feed on Slack, and wow, I am blown away with the quality of the attendees. Leaders from Keller Williams, Better Homes and Gardens, EXP, Compass, Hannah Holdings, Remax and Home Services, and incredible ecosystem partners like Zillow, Austin Board of Realtors, New Western Acquisitions, UWM, and Bright MLS, just to name a few. If you aren't familiar with GOE, this is our real estate brokerage event for the most elite brokers, teams, MLS execs, and state and local association of realtors leaders. June 18th through 21st in Austin, Texas at the amazing Omni Barton Creek Resort. Visit the events tab on realtrends.com or housingwire.com to register. That's the average agent experience, another really interesting metric. How do you balance that experience level while also trying to grow by adding new agents to the ecosystem? Like do fresh faces who don't have experience selling real estate do well inside of RE/MAX, or do you have more success recruiting that experienced agent into your brokerages? I know you're not doing that at the brand level, but kind of
yeah, no, that's a good question though, and I know exactly what you mean. It's a little bit of both, because we have more agents that come into the system that do have some level of experience, and that obviously shows in our numbers and the data. However, we do have agents that are, say, newly licensed and maybe join a team leader. That team leaders are all about focusing on training and productivity and leadership of agents. But we also have some offices, and it varies by office, but we have some offices that focus heavily on training or bringing in some people that are newer to the business. So as long as the resources are there to train people the right way and focus on their growth, absolutely they can be successful in RE/MAX. In fact, I was just talking with a team leader yesterday, and he started with us almost 25 years ago, never been with anyone different, and is in what we call our Diamond Club, over $1 million in gross commission income, and does a phenomenal business and runs a team of about 8 agents. And just a phenomenal story of someone that started with RE/MAX, loves the brand, and loves where they've taken their business and started with us. So yeah, it can be done.
So when you think about the incentive structures of different brokerage models, it sounds like the RE/MAX model, where the model that Dave brought to market of 100%, agents keep 100% of the commission, but share in the cost of running the brand, is a model that attracts the productive agent at a certain level, where models where it's, straight commission, there's not an expense for an unproductive agent to stick around in the profession or inside of a brokerage for longer than they should. It kind of your model kind of weeds out the low producers by design, right?
It does. The model is kind of what we call it is self-cleansing. I mean, there are a lot of agents, out of 1.6 million realtors, there are hundreds of thousands that do 0 deals, that just hang a license, or several 100,000 that only sell 2 or 3 homes a year. They help a family member or a neighbor once in a while. And we're just not designed necessarily to support someone that dabbles in real estate. We're really, our design, our tools, services, everything that we focus on are really more designed on a full-time professional that this is their career, their full-time career. And that's not by accident, for sure. So but it depends. I think that we always say that we're not the home for every single agent, where there are some companies out there that they are supporting agents that maybe only sell 1 or 2 houses a year. It doesn't make maybe one right or wrong. It just makes it different. And our focus just happens to be on those that really want to grow their business to be a full-time professional.
That's an interesting position in this market. I think the market is going through a cleansing stage where we anticipate there'll be significantly less real estate professionals, and on the mortgage side of the house, less mortgage originators than there were last year. They'll be self-cleansing, and people will self-select out of the industry. And I wonder, in your model, if some of that self-cleanse, if it's not as pronounced, like the cleansing is not as pronounced because it already happens by business model, or if it happens anyway. How do you think about how this market dynamic, the cleansing effect of washing out the dabblers? I had another podcast recently where dabblers came up, and nobody needs advice from a part-timer or a dabbler. They need the professional. So I don't hate the idea of self-cleansing some of the dabblers out.
Well, I think if you ask, whenever I'm in front of a room of agents in this industry, no matter what brand, over years, the barriers of entry are low. That's just the reality. The barriers of entry are low, but the barriers to success are very high. Statistically, 87% of agents that get a real estate license don't have it 5 years later. And so a lot of people I've seen, hey, this is a get rich, it's an easy business. I get a fancy car, nice clothes, and they realize that it's hard work. And so even though the barriers of entry are low, and that's the way that they will likely continue, that means that we're going to continue to see people that say, hey, I'm going to give this a try. And you look at the number of agents that have joined the business just even in the last 3 years. During the pandemic, and people were having layoffs, especially in hospitality and some other sectors. And then they look around and say, oh, hey, how about I get a real estate license and give that a try? And the market was hot enough, as most people know, that people could be order takers and do okay. But when it comes down to a more balanced market where people really have to look and hunt for the business and engage with their sphere and have the right marketing and the right tools, that's when you find out who has staying power. If you take it just to the simplest terms, here's how I like to put it, that if you take, say, an average RE/MAX agent, say, earns $150,000 a year, and the average in the industry is 45. If the market contracts by 25 or 30% on transactions, which many markets have, agents that have been in the business and seen other sides of a market, they've worked in a buyer's market, if their income drops by a closing or two, they'll still be in business next year. They know how to adjust. But if you're trying to make this business a go, say on $40,000 a year gross commission income, and your income drops to $25,000, that may be the difference in whether you turn your license back or not. But there's something fundamental about all of this. I firmly believe that the reason that 87% of their agents give their license back to the state, they don't run back and say, hey, Clayton, I got to give my license back because I couldn't make my split with my broker work. But yet there's so many out there that it's a race to the bottom, that's where their competitive value proposition goes. Where I think what this market is showing is people are looking for clients. They're looking for transactions and they're looking for closings. And that's what this business really comes down to, is if you're successful as an agent, you sell a lot of houses. You don't necessarily save $25 a month. And so it's just a totally different lens that you look through when you think about productivity is what you need to do to be successful.